albums worldwide. He's pretty awesome. And he just released his latest album called Every Man Should Know. He joins us now in the studio. Harry Connick Jr., good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Man, it's an honor to have you here.
Oh, thanks.
I grew up loving music, playing music, but I was never allowed to buy music.
Oh, why?
Because my parents were weird. No good. I wish I had also. They're just weird to me.
So, like, if you wanted to go down to the record store, they say,
Nope. Not
really.
Not until I turned 12. And I went to the record store and I bought Red Light, Blue Light.
Come on, really?
Swear to God.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a true story, man. And you
That's
didn't know
really
me when.
cool.
I was like the only 12-year-old going around singing.
Probably right.
Yeah, I was a weird kid.
That's wild.
No, but so it's an honor to actually have you here.
Thank you, man.
So you and since then, since the '90s, you've been extremely busy, man. You've been busy
Yeah.
longer than that. I mean, how do you manage to do everything?
Well, I take it a day at a time. You know, my family's kind of at the center of the universe for me,
Yeah.
and everything kind of revolves around that. So, like, I'm going on tour next week, Baltimore and Providence and Boston and all of these great towns, and that's the time I work. And I've had time off prior to that to be with my family, and then you take a little time, make a record, take a little time, do a movie. So it all kind of
Take
leads.
some time to get an Emmy. Take some time to get a Grammy. I totally get it. I can totally relate.
But you know what's funny? And this is the God's honest truth. That's never been the goal. I mean, it really feels nice to be nominated or win those awards, but I think if at the heart of what you do is the art, it doesn't matter win, lose, sell a lot of records, not sell a lot of records, because you're fulfilled, you know what I mean?
Is that why you decided to be a musician for the art?
I felt like I was chosen to be. I mean, I didn't have any other choice. I love playing music. You know, you're a drummer.
Yeah.
Like,
See, I did it for the women, though.
that didn't work. Well, it worked for one woman, and that's all that really mattered to me. But I just always was so passionate about playing. It's just, that's home base for me.
Yeah, and you've been doing this since you were a baby, man.
A long time, probably since I was 3.
My God, how do you even start doing that at 3?
It was, I mean, if you think about it, it was probably me just kind of plunking notes out. But I remember sitting at the piano and associating tones with different notes, and then I'd play 2, and there'd be 2 notes and together as a harmony, and that always fascinated me. And then as I started getting into it, you know, you could play different things at the same time. And then I really started studying piano players and singers and trying to figure it out. And that's when when the floodgates opened.
Who are the major influences on you?
Well, piano-wise, I grew up in New Orleans, so there were a lot of piano players down there like James Booker and Elvis Marsalis. But I could go on and on about Duke Ellington, Thelonious Monk, Bill Evans, Herbie Hancock, and then all the great singers. I mean, I was born in '67, so like I was a huge Freddie Mercury fan. I used to play Billy Joel tunes. I loved Dick Haynes, Frank Sinatra, Nat Cole. Now, like Kim Burrell, Nikki Ross, Doobie Powell. I mean, so many of these singers you hear them and you're like, how do they do that? Or you see these piano players, like, how do they do that? So I've had a lot of great influences.
Did you ever have any reluctance or better yet, resistance from folk who said, this is a white guy doing this kind of music?
No, because in New Orleans, it really doesn't matter what color you are. I mean, it is a colorblind city. All they care about is if you can play. I didn't experience any kind of weird racism till I moved to New York, when people would actually say things. Musicians would sometimes make comments about, oh, look at this white boy coming up here to play. But where I come from, if you could play, you could play.
And if you're serious about the music, right? I mean, some people are coming in and they try and jack the music.
Yeah, no. You have to be serious. And they know within 2 seconds if you're serious and if you've done your preparation. So, and I always try to do that.
So tell me about this new album, because it seems to be a different term for you. It's a great album, but it's also a very, I guess, personal.
It is personal. I think that's the biggest turn. I mean, it's all original songs, which is something I've done before, but some of the lyrics are a little bit more about me. I always thought, like, as a songwriter, I would just lay on my bed and dream, and I could write about anything, really. There was no limits. Now I said, well, let me start going inside a little bit and dealing with my own life a little bit. So I'm touching on some subjects that I never really sang about.
Like what?
Well, like my mom. My mom died when I was 13, and it always made me very uncomfortable to talk about it, much less sing about it. And, you know, time has passed, and I've done my work trying to understand how her death fits into my plan in my life, and I'm okay with it now. And I'm very private about my relationship with my wife, but I sing about it a little bit now. So I guess you grow up a little bit, and for me, that was my process.
Yeah.
So it was time for me to do that.
Does the music ever help you make sense of your life and heal in a way?
It's a great question. It never, not really, but when you start, it's a separate deal. Like it's like a separate part of your brain. Like a lot of people will take music and say, "Oh, I like to go play piano because it just takes my stress away." Well, when I sit at a piano, that's when the stress happens because I practice and I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
But when you start singing about things that really, really hit home, I think it's therapeutic in a completely different way. It's not. It's an almost an inarticulate way because it's not like you're talking to somebody in concrete terms. You're exposing yourself emotionally in a very bare, almost primal way with music. And it makes you think about things differently. So that's a great question. It actually has changed the way I look at things.
Do you find safety in being able to disclose your emotions to millions of listeners who you don't have to actually meet versus, say, sitting in the chair with a shrink or talking to some stupid internet host?
These are all such great questions because when there's a relationship you have with an audience as an audience cumulatively, that's different than me and you talking.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like I can't really see the audience because of the lights, but there's a relationship that we have. And sometimes when you meet people individually, it's too intense, I guess.
Dude, I get it.
You know what I mean? But when you know, again, as a musician, or when you're here, like millions of people are watching us now. So if they were all in this room, A, it would have to be a huge room.
Yes.
And B, like, it gets a little, it's strange. I love the performer-audience relationship.
Which is why I was going to ask you about Broadway, because that's also a different kind of performance. Because
Totally different.
And you get the kind of immediate response from a crowd.
You do, although you are not doing what you would normally choose to do because you're playing a role. The thing I like about playing live is that I don't plan shows. Just like, I don't know what you're going to ask me. We didn't talk before,
Right.
and we're having a conversation. That's why I like to make stuff up as I go on stage with the crowd, because it's an evolution. It's like going on a date.
Yeah.
If I played the same show every night, I don't think that people would really be getting me.
Right.
But Broadway's a whole different joint because it's like walking this tightrope every night. You have to hit these same marks, and you can expand within the character, but that's a whole different kind of deal.
No, absolutely. And then, first of all, tell me, how'd you get into that? Because
Broadway?
Yeah, because a lot of musicians want to be actors, musicians, like you said. Most aren't really good at all of it. You know, you managed to be pretty damn good at all of it.
Oh, thanks. Well, you know, I started acting in high school, doing plays, and I knew Broadway was something I always wanted to do. It was just a matter of when the opportunity came up. And so I had written some scores and things for Broadway. And I think in 2006 I did a show called The Pajama Game, which I was actually in as an actor and a performer. And if you take television and film and music and you squish them all together, that's kind of what Broadway is. It's a live performance. And it felt like a comfortable transition.
A lot of people know you not just from Broadway, but from Will and Grace. That's the big sort of acting job that a lot of us know you from. What was it like to be with that cast and to do that kind of show?
It was awesome. I felt a little uncomfortable sometimes because those 4 characters, they're all individually as actors off the charts, smart and talented, and their characters were huge. I have a slower rhythm just in life. I'm a slower, kind of more laid-back person.
Yeah.
And I always felt like my character didn't gel with the pace of that show.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't.
See, I thought that's what made it interesting.
Maybe.
You were almost like the straight man of all straight men.
I got you. But I always felt like, man, am I slowing the show down? But they kept asking me to come back, and Jimmy Burrows, who was the director, said, no, this works. So I loved it, man. I like being around creative people.
Yeah. That show in particular is interesting because in some ways it opened the door for a lot of the social and political things that we're dealing with right now. I mean, that was a show that
very well
helped normalize gay and lesbian relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know at the time that it was going to be that kind of a thing?
With those actors and those writers, absolutely, because it was so articulately and elegantly done and presented that those types of, a show like that is a force, and undeniably at some point it's going to have a social type of impact. So although it was sort of happening as the show was on the air, and it was harder, it's easier to see in hindsight, you had to know that it would start to open a dialogue for people, and it did.
And as an entertainer and as someone who's clearly on the ground as an activist as well, How do you make sense of what's going on now with the sort of with the LGBT issues with gay marriage on the horizon in many states? What do you think of that?
I think I'm an entertainer. I get on stage and I play and I sing and I act. That's what I do. There are people who are very, very knowledgeable about those issues and what needs to be done to help advance those types of legislation issues.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that there are people who are powerful in that way.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I don't know how to do that. And I rarely talk about my personal or political beliefs for that reason.
Yeah.
Not because I don't have them, but because I don't know enough. I mean, I know what I believe, and I subscribe to that.
I actually appreciate that. You know, because some people come on and just say whatever. You know, and
that's cool.
Yeah.
But like honestly, man, both my parents were politicians. Nobody really knows what goes on. Like my dad was a DA, and he would get written about. Let's say there was a negative article in the paper. No matter how much the press thinks they know, they don't know what's going on in that office. They don't know. You could hate Barack Obama, you could love Barack Obama, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the guy that gets up and starts standing on the soapbox and pounding my political beliefs home, because I don't know everything there is to know. You want to talk about how to play piano? Let's go. You want to talk about making music or being on Broadway? I'm your guy.
How about how to clean up New Orleans, how to fix New Orleans?
It's done. It's already been done.
And you've been a big part of that, man.
Well, small part. There were a lot of people. There it is again. I think the key to success is realizing your limitations and